Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Keep in mind that I'm not racist. I have whites and Jews in my family. And at one point I had a big crush on a Jewish female. And if things had worked out, I might have been married to her with Jewish in-laws for that reason. Okay, you know. Now, this part of my story, I think it's important for you to understand certain things because they're trying to play me out while I'm making the videos. And I can't stress that enough because people have to have no doubt in their mind that that's what's going on, because it is what's going on. And, you know, you might see people who like to gaslight people who are going to play stupid about it. And so, therefore, I want you to understand that they ruined everything by trying to make life about a childish, occult, witchcraft game. You see, one cannot pretend that I, the top martial artist ever possible, am not the main person in charge in the bigger picture, again, in the bigger picture, and still have any significant degree of power. Insanity does not allow for power. Being the queen of people stupid enough to play stupid about this makes you like the queen of ants, right? The king or queen of ants. And the queen or king of ants does not have true power. Call that the intro. So my first point, there is no serious racial competition. Everyone understands the spectrum of racial qualities very well. The only question is whether the individual group is too bitch to admit it. For example, there's no competition about which race was the greatest warriors. We all know it's black people. There's no question or competition about which race is a soul brother race, right? We all know it's black people, right? The most spiritual group. No offense to anybody. There's no competition. It's whether or not you're going to admit it. Whether you're going to pretend Harry Potter would beat Mike Tyson at boxing. Whether you pretend that He-Man, the idea is referring to, would beat the idea that Black Panther is superimposed on in single combat, right? It's whether you are too bitch to admit it or not is the only question. That's important. That's far more important than you think. Because so many problems would be solved if people would just admit this. And they'd admit it, and they stop trying to act bad, and they just act in a way that reflects who they are. Like it says in the Bible, I am who I am. You don't need to be tougher than the toughest black person, you know, to be a cool person, to be a worthy date, to be someone who lived a fulfilling life. You just disgrace people and your people when you pretend that your group is more spiritual or more tough than the highest spectrum of black people or a better martial arts. People need to understand that. No offense to anybody. If you have a viable counter-argument, please, I'd love to hear it, you know. And I'll be very courteous about that point, especially in any discussions about that point. Okay. Point number 2. Everyone knows that if a black brain surgeon's son with a 10-year and counting top martial arts challenge, right, going back to 2013, the end of 2013, says that he is being persecuted, covertly drugged, fumed, and sabotaged, that he must be telling the truth. Psychiatrists are called shrinks for a reason. This refers to social status, among other things. They want people to be less, like the word bless. You have the letter B and then the word less. The word less is in the word bless, because to an oppressor, okay, oppress, right? They think that, you know, if they get people to pretend that they're less, that somehow it makes them more. It's stupid, but they actually live like this, like an occult principle or something. So psychiatrists are called shrinks for a reason. This refers to shrinking them in terms of social status, among other things, right? And it goes back to the witchcraft of shrinking the brain, shrinking the head. Okay, and of course drugs are said to shrink the brain in popular culture and so on and so forth. Okay, because what happens is when you shrink someone's head, you make a fool of them, right? For more than one reason. They look weird, okay? They can't think as well, what have you. That's what it symbolizes, right? Voodoo and what have you. Okay. And law enforcement generally cannot be trusted on such matters. You don't go to law enforcement to discuss who's sane, okay, at the highest level of the discussion, which is what discussions about my mental state require. The highest level. I'm someone who's researched mental health for years. I've done interviews with people who went to college for psychology, okay? There's a disagreement within the psychiatric community themselves and the mental health community themselves. They don't all agree on whether there's a valid diagnostic test for mental illness or not. Okay, and you don't just get the average beat cop to say, well, I'm quite a philosopher, matter of fact. So they don't know what they're talking about. and neither do shrinks. They're highly political agents of the government. And of course, they're going to pretend that the political opposition is nuts. They tend to swing left, but there's also conservative ones, and they're known to collaborate like the federal government, left, right, middle, in order to kind of play out the opposition and to pretend that their opinion doesn't matter. And just Google the political abuse of psychiatry and spend a good half an hour reading it. You'll have no doubt in your mind that I'm right. Okay. Point number 3. If there's a question and Michael Jordan says that he has first-class tickets on a plane, we will believe him. Okay? If a homeless person says the same thing, we probably won't believe him. So we have to consider what type of person. In this case, right, what type of a black person, right? If some homeless person said that, he's being persecuted, maybe he's not telling the truth. Maybe he's schizophrenic. But when a brain surgeon's son with a college degree, with 23, 24 witnesses on record that also say that they've witnessed various aspects of that persecution, says he's persecuted, what kind of sicko doesn't believe him? What kind of crazy, dumb person doesn't believe him? Only idiots would even pretend that they don't believe me. Point number 4. Everyone knows that it is a bitch move when a group uses government operations to try to, set up the black man or black people. You see, one can't compete with facts. Think about the implications. Okay? Everyone knows that. Say, why are you sabotaging him? If you're so superior, why sabotage him? It's like Tanya Harding feeling like she was going to win no matter what. Then why did she sabotage Nancy Kerrigan? I mean, it's insane to sit there and to pretend that black people aren't sabotaged because of the mental threat that they pose to the white racist establishment, the white Jew and LGBT racist establishment. It's crazy. And everyone knows it's a bitch move. You guys say we sabotage them for generations, even having them enslaved on plantations. We sabotage them through proxy these days. But we're just superior, folks. And you shouldn't take the brain surgeon's son seriously. Because my privilege is sacred. Okay? They're basically arguing that their privilege, which includes the large degree of child molestation we see in the places that they control and the places that they have colonized, they act like that is greater than universal pinpoint and moral precision. That is very, very sad when people agree with them. Point number 5. Everyone knows that the toughest and smartest and smoothest people, one comes across in the streets are black. Okay, the highest spectrum of them. See, martial arts wisdom is similar in some ways to street gangsta strategy. Okay, think cause, mentality, and effect. So, if you were in New York City, okay, who's the gangsters that are the most kind of clever on the streets, right? It's going to be a black person. There's all kinds of races on the streets. There's white people, there's blacks, there's Puerto Ricans, there's Mexicans. But the black guy is particularly smooth and wise. That's part of why they're the most pronounced in rap, which has to do with projecting kind of street prowess, okay, which includes urban warfare on the gang member level. Not someone who's trained to be like a parrot, to simply live their military training, but somebody who kind of took in the environment and masterfully moves in it. There's a difference between learned behavior and sheer intelligence. Since I'm about out of time here, my last point is part of how they get gang members, militia, cops, criminals, military people, assorted jerks, you name it, to play themselves out by putting a bit of confusion into society, right, and playing stupid about these things and pretending they're right, okay, in regards to these matters, right, is that people do not correct these things in regards to Nigerian martial arts. So, for example, people don't say the Black Panther movie is actually about Nigerian martial arts when you think about someone being the pinnacle of African martial arts in Africa. And then let's compare the different types of Nigerians, right? And say that's the toughest type of person. Instead, they pretend they're being diplomatic or something, but they're really just trying to take away from every group so certain rich white people and Jews and LGBT can pretend to be ideal. Okay, and that causes all kinds of animosity and death. Okay, once you give someone their respect and say, hey, that's Jesus, that's the top martial arts, right? That you don't clash with them. And you don't, it causes a ripple effect in the streets that reduces overall violence.